I never imagined being called the coffee girl would lead to a 10-minute collapse. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The aroma of brewing coffee filled the air, mixing with the tension in my chest. I stood at the counter, trembling hands gripping the steaming cup, my heart racing. That morning, the cafe buzzed louder than usual. Whispers slithered through the crowd, pinning me to my spot like a butterfly on display. I saw familiar faces, a college friend, a couple I used to babysit for, and then there was Marcus. He smiled, but his eyes were clouded. I could sense something was wrong. Last week, we had celebrated a promotion at work, my little corner of joy in this unpredictable world. My job at the tech firm had its perks, but it came with late nights and less sleep. I was just the coffee girl in the tech hub where dreams collided with reality. But reality was turning dangerously wobbly. That I glanced at the news on my phone, colors flashing frantically, fingers swiping through headlines that made my blood run cold. My stomach twisted like a pretzel. Data breaches, stolen funds, and chaos. My company was in turmoil. It can't be that bad. I whispered, but the knot in my throat told another story. The crowd murmured with anxiety. Was it happening here, too? My heart thudded like an echo in an empty room. I searched for solace in Marcus's eyes, and he hesitated. Did you hear about the IT collapse? His voice cracked, filled with uncertainty. That my breath hitched. What do you mean? He leaned closer, urgency in his tone. It's bad. They're saying it could cause an entire financial meltdown. I felt the chill creep in, like cold fingers tracing my spine. The weight of his words settled over me. People around us gasped, phones buzzed relentlessly with updates that felt heavier with each notification. Panic flickered through the coffee shop. Someone dropped a cup, it shattered, scattering porcelain shards across the floor like promises broken. I winced, the sound piercing through the buzzing noise that enveloped us. In that moment, I wasn't just the barista. I was at the epicenter of something vast and unknown, a storm brewing inside my chest. What role would I play in this disaster? Would I have to choose between loyalty to my job and the safety of those I loved? I spotted my manager, Tanya, her face pale as she spoke hurriedly into her phone. The heaviness in the air thickened, almost suffocating. I wanted to grab her attention, but fear held me back. What if she knew? What if I was just another ripple in this unfolding storm? Then, Marcus turned to me, uncertainty etched on his face. What if you knew something important? His question hung, a potent silence spreading between us. The world grew quieter, but my heart raced louder. That I never imagined being called the coffee girl could get this complicated. My gaze broke away from him and retraced the chaotic cafe scene, searching for the clues that would crack open this mystery. But what if I opened the wrong door? With the clock ticking and chaos rising, one question danced like fireflies in the dark. What would I discover if I took that chance? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The cacophony of the cafe faded into a low hum as I tried to process Marcus's question. What if I knew something? My mind raced with hypothetical scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. I scanned the faces around me, searching for someone, anyone, to ground me in this moment. But everyone was caught in their own storms, eyes glued to screens, whispers of uncertainty echoing off the walls. Is there a backup plan? I finally managed to stutter, my voice barely a whisper, barely audible over the chaos. Marcus looked at me, his brows furrowed in thought. You know how these systems work. If they're compromised, it's going to take more than coffee and a sweet smile to fix it. I flinched at the harsh edge in his tone, the gravity of the situation pressing down on us both. That I glanced at Tanya again, her hurried gestures suggesting panic, her voice sharp as she barked orders into her phone. She was my boss, my mentor, and seeing her unravel felt like a dagger to my heart. Wasn't it only last week that we'd celebrated my promotion together? Now, with the walls crumbling around us, I felt like I was drifting. I didn't just want to help myself, I wanted to save everyone. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught my eye. An older gentleman, someone I recognized as a regular, stumbled through the door, his eyes sunken and wild. He clutched his phone in one hand, crumpled paper in the other, breathing heavily as though he'd run a marathon. Is it true? The firm is collapsing? My investments, me wife and I were on the brink. His voice caught in his throat, desperate. The cafe momentarily fell silent, tension weaving through the patrons like a thick fog. Tanya immediately moved toward him, her panic giving way to compassion. Sir, let's sit down, she said softly, guiding him to a table. I'll get you some water. I was struck by her ability to shift gears from frantic manager to nurturing figure, and a flicker of hope ignited in my chest. Perhaps in the worst of times, kindness could still prevail. As she comforted him, I felt the urge to step closer, to eavesdrop, to understand more, but my feet were anchored to the floor. I could feel the weight of responsibility cloaking me. The reality was, I had the background, I had knowledge of the systems. Was this why Marcus had asked me such a leading question? I have to help, I muttered under my breath. Marcus turned, concern etched on his face. What are you thinking? I know a few things about the backup protocols. If they're breached, maybe I can figure out a workaround. I need to go. I need to find out how deep this goes. My throat tightened, there was fire in my belly, but doubt clung close, whispering that I was just the coffee girl ill-equipped to tackle something so monumental. Marcus instinctively reached for my arm, grounding me. If it's true, and it's that bad, you could put yourself in danger. This is serious, and they might. I have to try, I interrupted, sparking fear in his eyes. What if we don't do anything and it's worse than we think? My boss won't even look at me if this all falls apart. A silence enveloped us, and in that moment, I felt a surge of determination replacing the dread. Perhaps I didn't have the authority, but I understood the systems. I could help. Before I could spiral any further into my thoughts, Tanya's voice rang out, steady yet shaky. We need to stay calm, everyone. We're keeping our doors open while we figure things out, but we may have to limit service. Everyone, please bear with us. The crowd settled back into uneasy whispers, but I could see the fear etched on their faces, and I felt their despair. I struggled to catch my breath as the gravity of the situation sank deeper. Careers were at stake, families were depending on stability. I took a step toward the back office, Martin's question still echoing. What if I knew something important? Perhaps, just perhaps, I held a thread that could unravel this nightmare, but before I reached the door, the cafe was jarred by a sudden loud crash. Glass shattered again, this time not from a dropped mug but from the entrance. The door swung open. Violently, silhouetting a man whose face I didn't recognize. Panic seized the room once more as he shouted, "This is bigger than you think. They're covering it up." My heart raced as I exchanged a look with Marcus. My breath caught in my throat. This was far beyond what I had anticipated. With a single revelation, the world felt like it had tilted on its axis, and the storm of uncertainty drew closer, threatening to swallow us all whole. The atmosphere inside the cafe grew thick with anxiety. The man's voice pulled everyone's attention like a magnet, his words landing with the weight of a thunderclap. I could feel every heart rate quicken, my own racing wildly, caught between fear and anticipation. "What do you mean?" I called out, defiance momentarily pushing aside my trembling nerves. "What are they covering up?" His wild eyes darted towards me, assessing, probing. "They're diverting funds, moving things out of the system. It's a meltdown waiting to happen. If you don't know how to stop it, the whole firm is going to crash." The gravity of his statement sent shockwaves through me. Just last week, I'd been relishing in the triumph of my promotion. Now, the weight of that very same title felt suffocating. Coffee Girl seemed like a title I would have preferred in that moment, anything to keep me removed from the enormity of the decision ahead. But reality was relentless, I had to confront it. Enough. Tanya's voice rang out, sharp and clear, breaking the tension. She stepped forward, her demeanor shifting back to that of the leader I admired. We need constructive voices here, not chaos. I could see the resolve in her eyes. What proof do you have? The man took a moment, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. I'm a programmer, he said finally, fists clenched. I had access to the main systems. I saw the transactions vanish, just like that. He snapped his fingers, and the sound echoed ominously, punctuating the truth with dread. Why didn't you report it? Someone called out from the back, skepticism lacing their tone. I did. He turned sharply to face the voice, the desperation spilling over. But they silenced me. Everyone who questioned things is gone. Don't you see? They're setting it up to fall. His fear infused the air, and memories of the last few days flooded my own mind. Glances exchanged between colleagues, the hushed conversations in corners. I realized it wasn't just paranoia. Something sinister was at play, much larger than I had envisioned, larger than I could handle. Marcus' grip on my arm tightened again, grounding me through the whirlwind of thought. You can't go near this, he urged, his tone grave. If they're covering up something, they won't hesitate to silence you too, but his words only ignited a flicker of rebellion within. I might know how to access those transactions, I admitted, blurring the lines of caution and desperation. I had spent countless late nights reviewing the systems, and the idea that I could potentially prevent a disaster sparked something inside of me, a sense of power I hadn't felt before. The older gentleman looked at me with a mixture of fear and hope. You can help? I can try, I blurted, unaware of the gravity of the commitment I was making. The cafe around us was a tempest, voices fraying at the edges, uncertainty lapping at our heels. Tanya surveyed the room, vulnerability creeping through her stern facade. If we're going to confront this, we need a plan. Her voice, though shaky, brought a small nod of agreement from the beleaguered patrons. Just then, a flash of movement caught my eye again as another figure appeared in the doorway, one I recognized. Grant, from accounting. His face was pale, sweat lining his brow. You guys need to listen, he said, stepping inside as the door swung closed behind him, cutting off the outside world. There was a leak in the system. Someone's left a message for us. A ripple of fear thundered through the room. What message? Tanya pressed, eyes narrowing, masking panic with urgency. His eyes darted nervously. It mentioned something about a compliance issue and the deadline is today. Gripped by the weight of his words, the urgency clawed at me. This was bigger than I had imagined, and just as I thought we might navigate this storm together, a new tension began to settle, the realization that the clock was ticking. Do you all realize what this means? Grant continued, rushing the words out. They're counting on us to slip up. If we wait any longer it's over. The room swelled with tension, each heartbeat reverberating with the impending doom. Overwhelmed by the enormity of the challenge ahead, I glanced between Marcus and Tanya. There was no turning back now, the path set before us would demand everything. Suddenly, the older gentleman gasped. Look at the news. He fumbled with his phone, and a collective groan rose as all eyes turned to the screen he held. What is happening? I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. On the display, headlines flashed in rapid succession: major firm faces IT meltdown, thousands of customers affected, and the final dagger, insider trading allegations surface. Beneath the glow of the screen, my heart fell as if grounding itself in an abyss. What had I dragged us into? A moment later, the phone chirped, an emergency alert breaking through the tension. All personnel to report to HQ immediately. Mandatory meeting regarding potential crisis. Panic erupted once again. This isn't just about us anymore, I realized, heart racing. We need to act fast. But as uncertainty crashed around me, I stood frozen for a heartbeat longer. This was no longer a mere crisis, it felt like a turning point in my life. I glanced at Marcus and Tanya, their faces a mixture of fear and resolve. What choices would we make in this storm? With every passing second, I felt the gravitational pull of our fears, whispering that perhaps this was not a moment that would define our futures but rather break us completely. Yet as the room pulsated with urgency, the sliver of hope that had illuminated Tanya's kindness was rekindled. I stepped forward. Together, we faced our fears, or we would become part of the very collapse we feared. The urgency in the cafe mounted like a wave threatening to crash. We had a chance to intervene, but the weight of the new information crushed any flicker of confidence I had felt moments earlier. My pulse thudded in my ears as I forced myself to breathe. The glowing screen filled with alarming headlines on the older gentleman's phone felt like an anchor, dragging us into depths we weren't prepared to navigate. "Okay," Tanya began, her hands wildly gesturing as she faced us. "We need to split up. Grant, you take the financial documents and gather whatever evidence we can from our side. The more we have, the better." "But what about the meeting?" Grant protested, eyes widening. "They'll find out we know something. They'll attend the meeting," I volunteered, surprising even myself with my boldness. "I can blend in, act like nothing's wrong. If I can get a sense of what they're planning, maybe we can stay one step ahead." Marcus turned to me, concern etching deeper lines into his brow. "Are you sure about this? It could be dangerous." "There's no time to waste, Marcus," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "If there's a way to stop this, I have to try." I could see several faces around me reflecting a cocktail of fear and hope, but I swallowed my own fear and pressed on. Besides, I've spent too long as coffee girl. Maybe it's time to become something more. That I could see Tanya approvingly nod. "I need you focused, all right? Communication will be crucial. Let's use our phones to check in." The atmosphere shifted, the focus was sharper, though a slow dread began to wrap itself around my heart. I felt acutely aware of the consequences of this day. Failure loomed ominously, yet the notion that I was stepping into a pivotal role, no longer a mere spectator, ignited a sense of purpose I craved. While the team assembled their plan, each of us swallowed anxieties and sharpened resolve. I found myself slipping outside for a moment, needing the chill of the evening air against my flushed cheeks. Beneath the dim glow of the streetlight, I closed my eyes and felt the rush of decision wash over me, but before I could gather my thoughts, a figure emerged from the shadows, sidling up beside me. It was Grant, urgency etched in his features. "You can't do this alone. I want to help, even if it means putting myself at risk." "Grant," I hesitated, grappling with his willingness to dive into the unknown with me. "Look, I know this firm has treated us like cogs in a machine, but I don't want to sit back while it implodes. It's time to stand up for everything we poured into this place." His determination sparked something deep within me. A small warmth crept into the cold air as I nodded. "You're right. Together, we'll find a way. If we work smarter, we can keep each other safe." Even as I gripped the idea of safety, the gnawing doubt would not let me be at ease. As we stepped back inside, the atmosphere buzzed with frantic energy. The air was charged with uncertainty as everyone prepared for the next moves. Tanya had gathered a small group, each of us looking for different clues on how to prevent the looming disaster. I was struck by the silent camaraderie that surrounded us. We were all terrified yet resilient. "Vera," Tanya called, catching my attention. "Are you ready for this? Remember to keep your head in the game. Don't let your fear dictate your choices, it'll stay sharp." "I promise," I responded, forcing confidence into my voice even as the fluttering in my stomach threatened to distract me. The plan unfolded, everyone hustling further into their roles. As we were on the brink of leaving, Marcus caught my arm. "Just be careful. No heroics, it'll be fine." I reassured him with a small smile, though uncertainty knotted in my gut. That facade of control was beginning to waver. The drive to the office was a blur of thoughts, anticipation, and the opaque fear that had settled in the pit of my stomach. Arriving at the glass-walled headquarters, the monumental structure loomed over us, reflecting a smattering of lights like a crooked beacon of promises broken. My heart raced as we parked. Grant and I walked toward the building alongside the others, and I could feel the clock to my rumination ticking down, every tick a step into the unknown. As we entered, we passed by the reception area, where an air of normalcy clung stubbornly, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Suddenly, everything grew silent as the heavy door to the conference room swung open. There they were, our bosses, the players of the game, gathered like wolves expecting a feast. Something in the air shifted as they spotted us. Anticipation hung thick like fog. Then, as one of the executives turned to face us, and a penetrating silence fell over the gathering, My phone buzzed furiously in my pocket, a notification that shattered the air. I glanced at the screen quickly, and my blood ran cold. Official notice. All employees under investigation for insider misconduct. Immediate termination upon discovery of breaches. The weight of the message bore down on me, and in that moment, I knew I had stepped from the edge of a cliff, hovering precariously over a vast unknown below. I could feel the gaze of the executives pinning me in place, their intentions wrapping around me like chains. In one breath, reality crashed down. We were no longer just employees at risk. We had become pawns in a game far bigger than any of us had imagined. And the implications of our next moves were about to unfurl, dragging us all into the depths of a struggle I had only begun to comprehend. I drew a shaky breath as the executives continued to watch me, their expressions a mix of curiosity and thinly veiled contempt. Each of them seemed to sense the uncertainty radiating from me, a vulnerability that felt like a beacon. "Are you lost, Ms. Watson?" The lead executive, a woman whose sharp eyes seemed to cut through the air, inquired. Her voice dripped with faux concern, and I felt the room draw closer as I blinked back the encroaching panic. "Oh, ma'am," I managed to reply, forcing my voice to remain steady despite the knot tightening in my throat. "Just here to take notes for the meeting." I felt Grant shift beside me, but the tension in his posture was all too evident. "Good. We're going to need everyone coming together as a cohesive unit now more than ever." There was a hint of malice in her words that I couldn't ignore. "Of course, not all of you may be included in that unit by the end of today." The thrill of being someone dissipated, swept away by a deluge of fear. I couldn't shake the feeling that my role was teetering on the edge of being sacrificed before I even had a chance to fight back. My thoughts flitted to my coworkers, the ones glued to their desks, obliviously unaware of the storm brewing above them, the ones who had become friends amid the grind of deadlines and coffee breaks. The conversation in the conference room unfolded with slick words and evasive tactics. But their strategies felt like poison-laced honey, sweet yet dangerous. As I fumbled with my pen, jotting down meaningless phrases like asset management and corporate rebranding, I couldn't help but scan the room for any sign of vulnerability, any crack in their armor. Tanya's voice echoed in my memory. "Keep your head in the game." Minutes stretched on, and the air thickened with deceit. I could feel the weight of the official notice still clinging to me, a phantom threat hanging like a sword above my head. Then, just as the meeting delved deeper into complacent discussions, something unexpected happened. An older gentleman, a quieter executive, typically overlooked in conversations, spoke up. "Hold on, everyone," he said, his voice gravelly yet firm. "I believe we should take a moment to address the growing distrust among our employees. They deserve transparency, especially during uncertain times." My heart skipped. His words could either ignite a flicker of hope or serve to pull the rug out from under him. I watched the others tense. The lead executive shot him a withering glance but seemed momentarily unable to respond. "People are scared," he continued, determination blossoming in his voice as he looked around. "If they feel trapped in a sinking ship, they'll either jump overboard or revolt. I think we owe them more than what we're currently offering." For a heartbeat, I felt myself rallying behind him. Was it possible that this quiet figure could become an unlikely ally? But before I could ponder further, the lead executive regained her composure, forcibly redirecting the conversation toward numbers and charts. I clenched my teeth, a familiar grim determination surging within me. Perhaps this man knew the precariousness of our situation. Perhaps he could be persuaded to push for city employees' welfare over corporate greed. I excused myself to step outside for a moment, needing to breathe away the suffocating atmosphere. Grant followed close behind, sensing my unrest without my needing to say a word. "What are you thinking?" he asked, concern etched in his features. "There's got to be a way to expose the truth," I replied, staring into the neon-lit street beyond the office. That Manha seemed different. "If he sees what we see, he could help us." "He's powerful in ways we can't imagine," Grant cautioned. "If he's aligned with the lead executive, we could be stepping right into a trap. Or we could be setting the wheels in motion for something bigger. We can't stand by while they drop the axe on everyone. I just need you to trust me." I found the fear trembling within me but held on to it, marshalling that energy into something resembling conviction. "All right, but we need to be careful," he agreed, glancing briefly toward the glass doors we'd just exited. We still have the rest of this meeting to navigate through. As we re-entered the building, an instinct tugged at me, an intuition that this was merely the calm before the storm. The air was thick with anticipation as the meeting was already spiraling toward a conclusion of veiled chaos. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again, its vibrancy jolting me from my focused thoughts. The message seemed innocuous enough, yet when I read the words, my breath hitched. "Vera, we need to talk. It's important." Kate and my heart raced. Kay was one of our IT contacts, someone I had both feared and relied upon in equal measure. The last time I'd contacted him, it had been to protect myself from potential email breaches related to the investigation, the desperation of coworker hours leading to my collision with an unseen world of corporate betrayal. What did he know? I had little time to contemplate. An opportunity woven in mystery dangled just before me. "Grant, I need to step out for a second." "I'll be right back," I said, rushing toward the door, adrenaline coursing through me. "Wait," he began, but I was out into the quiet hallway before he could finish his sentence. The lingering dread turned to urgency, the revelation that Kay could provide critical insight wrapped around my thoughts, insisting I push forward despite the growing specter of fear that threatened to consume me. That if I could meet Kay and learn what he knew, perhaps we would find not just clarity, but a way to ignite a fire that could shake the shadows of deceit plaguing our world. As I rounded the corner toward the staircase, a voice interrupted me. The lead executive stood there, her expression carved into an unreadable mask. "Going somewhere, Ms. Watson?" I froze, the intensity of her gaze snaring me in its web. My heart thundered in my chest, and suddenly, I felt the precariousness of the barrel I was locked within, waiting for a spark that would ignite the inevitable explosion. The seconds stretched like elastic bands ready to snap. I could feel the pulse in my throat, electric and raw, as her icy stare bore into me. "Just needed some fresh air," I stammered, desperately trying to summon the calm that had been swept from my very existence moments before. "Really?" she replied, arching an eyebrow. "Seems you're quite invested in the meeting today. It would be a shame to miss out on the opportunities we're discussing, wouldn't it?" The slick politeness of her tone belied an underlying threat that I swallowed, the knot in my stomach tightening. Every instinct screamed at me to walk away, to turn and flee, but the thought of Kay waiting somewhere, the potential for answers looming like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog, anchored me in place. "That I just need to catch my breath," I repeated, willing my voice to hold steady, but I could feel the fissures in my facade. "Needing a breath is understandable, but I'd hate for you to misinterpret the atmosphere. We wouldn't want anyone jumping to conclusions, now would we?" Her words hung in the air, a veiled warning, sinister like the leg pulling in a game of hide-and-seek. My heart raced, each thud echoing the urgency of my choices. She stepped closer, and I felt ensnared by the weight of her presence. "Word travels fast around here, Vera. Stay vigilant. Not everyone is as they seem." The cryptic message sent a shiver down my spine. What did she know? My thoughts spiraled, grappling with her insinuations as she spun a web of dread. The realization washed over me. I must be losing my grip on this situation. I had to get to K.as. The tension in the air thickened. I managed a small nod, avoiding her gaze, plotting my escape. Then, with a suddenness that surprised even me, I turned and sprinted down the hallway toward the nearest exit, ignoring the distant thrum of the meeting echoing behind me. Once outside, the cool night air hit me, invigorating and piercing all at once. I pulled out my phone, the light casting a glow on my face, revealing the urgency I felt. I tapped K's number, feeling a mix of anticipation and dread coalesce in my stomach. As it rang, I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting the lead executive to appear and drag me back into the fray of corporate machinations. "Vera?" K's voice crackled through, both relief and urgency tangled in his tone. "I was worried you wouldn't receive my message." "Can we meet, where?" I asked, my mind racing. The stakes felt higher than they ever had. The darkness around me vibrated with tension, the shadows feeling like harbingers of what could come. That he hesitated, his voice lowering. "There's a small cafe a few blocks from your office. I'll wait there, but be discreet. If anyone sees you leaving or talking to me, you could be in serious trouble." "That I understand," I said, trying to steady my breath. "I'll be there." The call ended, and I took a moment to ground myself. This rendezvous could unlock everything: the veil of secrecy, the layers of betrayal. I turned on my heel, moving quickly yet carefully back toward the street, the clamor of my heart drumming an insistent rhythm. With each step, I passed the flickering storefronts and the throngs of unsuspecting people, blissfully unaware of the tumult boiling beneath the surface of their mundane lives. I could feel the heaviness of fate pressing down on me, and with each breath, I faced the bitter truth: this was about more than just me. It was about all the friends, the colleagues who counted on my courage to tell their stories. As I reached the cafe, the glowing sign flickered in the dim light, hinting at both warmth and comfort, but I had never felt more alone. I slipped through the door, scanning the room for Kay and spotting him at a corner table, his presence an island in a sea of shifting uncertainty. His presence was both a beacon and a boiling cauldron of anxiety, a man with a mind full of code and a heart bound by unspoken truths. I approached slowly, each step weighed down by concern as I settled into the seat across from him, eager yet apprehensive. I am here, I said, urgency rolling through me. What do you know? Kay leaned forward, his brow furrowed, shadows dancing beneath his eyes. Vera, there's something you need to be aware of. Something happening within the IT infrastructure that's larger than you understand. It's a financial black hole, he said, his words steeped in foreboding. If this goes live, the fallout could be catastrophic. Millions could be lost. It's not just your job at stake here. The gravity of his words crushed down upon me, and I blinked, feeling the world as I knew it begin to teeter. What do you mean? Is there a leak? A plan? How do we stop it? He hesitated, glancing toward the door, ensuring no one watched us. I'm not sure who's behind it, but I have reason to believe planning calls are happening tonight. If you're willing, I can access more data, but it's risky. You could be exposed. Exposed. That word hung in the air, tender and raw. I thought of the people I cared for, the smiles exchanged around the coffee machine, the camaraderie that buzzed in our hurried lives. I can't let this happen. Not to them. Not to us. K's gaze measured my conviction, a flicker of something like admiration passing through his eyes. Then you need to go back into the lion's den with this knowledge. A rush of blood pulsed in my ears. The idea made me dizzy, electrified with fear and adrenaline alike. I closed my eyes for a moment, envisioning the corporate jungle, the lead executive's vengeful eyes, the meeting filled with deceit. Could I really go back? Could I put myself on the line for something so much larger? As I opened my eyes, determination seeping into my bones, Kay leaned closer. But know this: if you choose to expose this, everything will change. Your life will never be the same afterward. And in that instance, I understood that this moment bubbled with more than just my fate or the peril to a job. It was about integrity, about standing on the precipice between peril and possibility. As I pulled myself to my feet, Kay's voice reshaped my resolve. Are you ready? Drawing a deep breath, I nodded. More than ever. I stepped out of the cafe into the bright chaos of the city. As I made my way back, a sense of dread coalesced around me, restless and uncertain. My heart thundered louder with each step I took toward the meeting, knowing there was no turning back now. But just as I rounded the corner, pulling out my phone to send a quick text to Grant, I'm on my way. It's bigger than we thought. I heard a murmured voice float like a ghostly echo through the air. Did you really think she wouldn't find out? My blood ran cold as I turned to see the lead executive standing just behind me, her shadow stretching across the pavement, as impenetrable and chilling as the darkness engulfing the future I thought I could control. The night felt sharper, as if jagged edges of reality had emerged from the shadows and encased me. The lead executive's chilling presence loomed over me, her expression unreadable yet dripping with venomous amusement. A heavy silence enveloped us, filled only by the faint hum of city life behind me. I managed to swallow, forcing myself not to flinch under her gaze. Excuse me? I asked, shocking even myself with the bravado lacing my voice. I could feel the world teetering on its axis as I grasped at threads of courage. In my mind, Kay's urgent warning echoed like a siren. She mustn't know I was already aware of the impending catastrophe. Her smile, diabolical and triumphant, revealed just enough of her teeth to feel like a barefaced threat. Some things should remain in the shadows, dear. My heart raced, each beat a counterpoint to the dread rising in my chest. This was it. This was where I either fell into her trap or spun this situation to my advantage. Funny, you seem to know an awful lot about shadows. But they do have a habit of revealing themselves in the light, I shot back, defiance igniting within me. Her laughter, rich with menace, recoiled into the night as she raised an eyebrow. You're clever, Vera. Where did you learn to play the game? From the darkest corners of my memory, I remembered Kay's sentiment about how integrity was not measured in victories but in small acts of resistance. Be careful, I said, trying to keep my tone steady. Those who operate in the dark usually underestimate those willing to stand in the light. The lead executive's lips curled slightly, intrigued by the spirit ID managed to summon. You're entertaining, I'll give you that. But remember, this is a game of power, not wit. You may think you're a player, but you've just entered the ring of gladiators. As she leaned close, her voice lowered to a conspiratorial whisper, feigning camaraderie. But don't worry. I can turn a blind eye, you can remain the coffee girl for a while longer. We all need pawns, the word pawn jolted through me, a bitter taste flooding my mouth. I was observing her with an acute awareness that she could pivot into a predator at any moment. But her proposition lingered like an unsolved riddle. What was she truly planning? Why do you want to protect me? I demanded, emboldened by my own curiosity. Surely, I'm of no use to you. You prefer more substantial assets. Her demeanor shifted, the mask of amusement slipping. You have unwittingly stumbled onto something you cannot comprehend, and that intrigues me. The threat hung heavy between us, pressing down like the oppressive humidity of summer. Part of me screamed to bolt, another part pondered K's warning. I couldn't blindly retreat. So then, what is the plan? I pressed, though part of me regretted even asking. She smirked, a sinister light ignited in her eyes. You will learn soon enough, but first, you should always protect yourself. If you're going to play, play to win, but never forget the cost. With that, she turned sharply, her high heels clicking against the pavement, a sound that echoed like a final warning in the night. I stood rooted to the spot, the weight of her words settling heavily in the pit of my stomach, a dark seed of doubt sprouting. I quickly regained my thoughts. Kay, I had to reach him. My fingers trembled as I pulled out my phone to text him. I need to meet. It's worse than I thought. My heartbeat thrumming a dissonant rhythm against my ribs, I waited for his reply, my eyes darting back toward the cafe. The shadows deepened around me, whispering secrets I couldn't decipher. When the phone vibrated, I snatched it up, but my hope turned to stone upon reading his response. Meet me at the office. Now, there was a sense of finality in those words that sent a chill slicing through me. What could possibly await me there? Has he uncovered more than either of us anticipated? And what would happen if I walked into that storm unprepared? The gnawing anxiety was wage war against my resolve, but deep inside, beneath layers of trepidation, a flicker of determination ignited anew. I would face the danger head on. There had been enough running. But as I turned to make my way back, I heard a strange sound behind me, a low, familiar murmur, like a secret being exchanged. My heart raced again, and I hesitated, listening. You know there are consequences to betrayal, the lead executive's voice floated through the darkness, but it wasn't directed at me. I strained to catch the words, the urgency creeping back into my veins. A second voice, trembling yet stern, responded, I won't let you use me. This isn't what we agreed upon. That I strained to make out shadows slipping between the dimly lit alleyways. Another player? Had Kay managed to secure support? Or worse, had he been unmasked, too? I held my breath, the anxious thrumming replacing any rational thoughts I had left. The night had now become a labyrinth of uncertainty, each corner obscured, promises splitting apart at the seams. I needed to take action, but the very idea of it sent icy tendrils gripping my heart. What truth lay beyond the darkened alley? I could not linger, could not remain haunted by the unknown, nor could I afford to gamble another moment on being an unwilling participant in the games they played. But fate, it seemed, had its own plans. As I stepped into the alley in pursuit of answers, the shadowy figures vanished, and as I rounded the corner, my blood ran cold. There, outlined by the streetlights, stood Kay, face pale like fog creeping over a bitter morning. The very embodiment of dread. The risk was greater than I had ever imagined, and the cost had yet to be revealed. As my heart skipped a beat, K's presence loomed larger than the shadows enveloping us. His eyes, usually so sharp and alive, flickered with a vulnerability that made them appear almost haunted. The desperation in his expression jolted me more than any threat had, and I felt the air shift around us, thick with unspoken fears. "Vera," he said, his voice a mere whisper, "we need to talk. There's something you don't know." "What is it?" I urged, stepping closer. The urgency in his tone constricted my chest. "Is it about the executive?" "Did she know?" "It's not her," he interrupted, shaking his head vehemently. "It's about the system itself. There are fractures in the infrastructure, deep ones. If they exploit it, it could lead to a complete collapse. They're planning to push through a major update that will put everything in jeopardy, and you might be the only person who can stop it." My mind raced, the pieces of his warning clattering together in a chaotic symphony. This was more than I had anticipated. Somehow, the stakes had risen, propelling me from an unwitting pawn into a pivotal role. But with this new knowledge came a wave of paralyzing doubt. Me? And nobody like me? Kay stepped forward, his urgency grounding me. "Everyone has an unseen strength, Vera. Yours lies in your connections, your ability to see things others overlook. You may not feel like it, but you hold the power to unveil what they want to remain hidden." That a part of me wanted to protest, to recoil from the enormity of what he was asking. But beneath that, a flicker of hope ignited, a small ember urging me to believe in the very thing I had always doubted, that I could actually make a difference. "What should I do?" "We need to gather evidence. There's a prototype log that links the new update to some very shady transactions. Whoever wants the update also has something to gain, profit off the impending crisis," Kay explained, his eyes narrowing. "But we can't let them pull this off. The IT team can't see it, they're too deep in. They're trusting the wrong people." As he spoke, the reality of our circumstances unfurled in front of me, terrifying yet exhilarating. The world we knew was crumbling, and I was at the center of the storm. But how can I access those logs? It's not as if I'm supposed to be near any sensitive data anymore. "You're still in the building when they're working late," Kay countered. "If you can get into the server room while they're distracted and pull a copy before it goes live, we can expose everything." My heart raced. It sounded reckless, dangerous. "What if I'm caught?" K's stare intensified, determination igniting the darkness in his eyes. "Then we must move quickly. You need to trust me, Vera. We're in this together. I won't let you bear the weight of this alone." His words resonated deeply, igniting a surge of defiance within me. For too long, I had felt insignificant, like a mere backdrop in someone else's play. But now, here I was, standing on the edge of something large and daunting, and finally, I felt the call of my own potential. "Okay," I said, steeling my resolve. "I'll do it. But we have to coordinate. I need a plan to ensure I can get in and out undetected." Just then, the atmosphere shifted violently. A low, chilling voice sliced through our moment of solidarity, echoing like thunder against the walls. "Ah, sweet little coffee girl, you really believe you have a chance?" Both Kay and I spun around. The lead executive stood at the mouth of the alley, a smirk clawing at her lips, eyes gleaming like polished stones. "You're far too late," she continued, stepping closer, the shadows wrapping around her like a cloak. "The servers are being updated as we speak. And you've already made your first mistake by discussing your plans so openly." My breath hitched. I hadn't even considered the possibility of her following us, had taken for granted that we were hidden in darkness. "Foolish of you to think espionage is so simple," she taunted. "You think you can run this game? There's a price for resistance, you know." K's fists tightened at his sides, and instinctively I moved closer to him, drawing strength from his unwavering presence. There was an urgency, a pressing need to act, yet fear coiled tightly around me. And then, as if to contradict the gravity of the situation, a soft ringing broke through the tension, reverberating off the brick walls. I fished out my phone, dread creeping in as I saw the name flashing on the screen, my mother. I hesitated, torn between the mounting peril and the echo of home, a life far removed from this darkness. "Vera." K's voice yanked me back into the moment, urgency lacing his words. Don't answer that. She can't know. You're too close. You can't give her any reason to worry, but the moment felt like a tether snapping. Would answering make me weaker, or would it ground me in the chaos? And as I turned the phone over, deciding what to do, the executive leaned in closer, her breath like fire against my ear. You're already losing the game, she whispered, a dark promise hanging in the air. Will you turn your back on your mother for this caper of yours? A girl playing in the shadows? When the real players know your name? Enough. Kay shot back, positioning himself between me and the threat. The weight of the world hung in the air, and as I looked between them, the conflict swelling, I was reminded of the thin line I walked, where every choice could unravel the life I had fought to protect. And that moment, I understood, the moment would come when I would have to confront my fears of the unknown, of betrayal. But tonight, standing defiantly against the encroaching darkness, I began to grasp that it was not just my life at stake, but everything I held dear. And as the shadows loomed, I knew I would rather be marked by the game than let it consume me entirely. And then came the revelation I hadn't anticipated. The figure at the end of the alley hadn't been just watching, they had been tracking every move, circles closing in, as the night continued to throb with hidden truths awaiting discovery, and the stakes climbed higher. As the night stretched on, tension crackled in the air like the silent buildup before a thunderstorm. The executive's words echoed in my mind, the icy threat intertwining with the urgent pulse of my own resolve. Kay stood firm, a steadfast barrier between danger and my fragile hope, but uncertainty gnawed at me. The sharp edge of her stinging taunts loomed. The last remnants of my old life faded like flickering shadows, urging me to make a choice. Vera, Kay whispered, his voice a barely contained fervor, we have to move, now. He turned his gaze to the executive, who was still savoring the unease hanging thickly. You can't intimidate her, not anymore. His faith in me ignited something primal. I'm not afraid, I declared, my voice steadier than I felt, and stepped around Kay, meeting the executive's gaze head-on. You don't own me. The executive's laughter was cruel and glimmering, cutting through the tension as she took a step closer. This isn't a game of wills, coffee girl. You're already out of your depth. How long before your precious connections turn on you? I'd wager they're made of paper. Your mother, for instance, she wouldn't want this distance between you two. It'll be your undoing. Panic simmered just beneath the surface. I instinctively reached for my phone, the weight of contact pressing down heavily in my palm. Was she right? Could my mother really be an Achilles heel in this relentless pursuit? But K's presence steadied me, his determination radiated with such fervor it almost served as a lifeline. We know what we're doing, and we're not walking away, he said, his voice crisp and unwavering. There's a truth that needs exposing, and we won't fall for your tricks. As the executive's gaze flickered momentarily to Kay, I seized the opportunity, feeling a wave of raw courage swell within me. You think I'm disposable? I shot back. Just another cog in your machine? You've underestimated my resolve. This isn't just a job for me anymore, it's personal. A flicker of surprise crossed her features, but it quickly morphed into a mask of amusement. Interesting, your bravado. Just remember, every hero has their villain, and tonight, you are breathing the same air as yours. With one last lingering glance, she turned and walked away, but the echo of her presence still clung to the shadows like a stagnant dust. As her figure faded, I felt a rush of adrenaline and a stark realization she had invoked something deep and primal in me. In her threat lied a spark of empowerment, the knowledge that I wasn't merely caught in a storm, I was a lightning bolt, charged and ready to strike. K's hand found my shoulder, grounding me back in reality. We need that evidence, Vera, he reiterated, urgency sharpening his words. The longer we delay, the more dangerous this becomes. Nodding, I took a deep breath to anchor myself. Let's do it. We have to act fast. But as I pulled away, an unexpected noise cut through the cold night, a breathless voice fluttering like a restless leaf. Vera. Turning, I saw Mia rushing toward Usher, defiance absolute and unwavering, even in her fear. I overheard everything. We can't let this go unchecked. Mia, this is dangerous. You shouldn't be here. I warned, guilt spearing through me. I hadn't wanted her to involve herself in this, but in that moment, the very connection that had once felt like a weight became my tether, my lifeline. Why did you come? because you're my friend, she said firmly, defiantly shaking off the shadows of doubt. And if you're doing this, in 2K's eyes widened in genuine surprise, and for a brief moment, I felt a flicker of solace. Together, perhaps we were stronger. Yet, the implications were heavy, the three of us against a machine that had already started moving, the drama of our lives unfurling under the veil of impending chaos. But before any semblance of strategy could be formed, I felt another vibration pulse through my pocket, the call I had nearly dismissed moments ago. It was my mother, persistent as always, and my heart clenched painfully at the thought of ignoring it. "Mia, we have to go to the server room now," I ordered, fumbling with my phone. "No," Kay said sharply, grabbing my wrist gently but firmly. "Don't answer it. It could jeopardize everything." But I hesitated, the internal war raging. The connection to my mother felt imperative. Her love had been a bastion in the chaos of life, and this current descent into darkness threatened to sever that bond. "Mia," Kay urged, "keep her distracted. If she shows up here, things could spiral out of control." As Mia nodded and prepared for a diversion, I turned once more to Kay. "We need to trust each other. But if anything happens to me, you're not going anywhere without us," he interrupted softly, pausing to look deep into my eyes. The fear reflected in his own echoed through me. "We'll navigate this together. Stick to the plan." But as I snuck a final glance at my phone, my finger hovered hesitantly over the green button, torn between the roots of my old life and the depths of this new, treacherous path. The vibration pulsed again, a reminder that danger lurked waiting to strike. Then, in a blur of unexpected cohesion, an urgent shout broke through the night. "Hey! Get away from her!" Before I could comprehend the threat, a familiar figure rushed from the shadows, heart-pounding openly, a figure I thought I would never see again under these circumstances, a figure I could never forget. Elias? In an instant, new possibilities surged through me: a secret ally or an unforeseen complication. Questions erupted in my mind as everything I had tried to establish began unraveling. Would we unite against the impending chaos, or would his presence shatter the fragile, tense alliance we had just built? The pieces of this growing puzzle felt precarious, and with the storm closing in, I couldn't shake the feeling that life, love, and loyalty had all become interwoven in a way I could never have imagined. And as the night's electricity buzzed ominously, I sensed one undeniable truth amidst the chaos: the game had changed entirely. The cafe was almost surrealistic in its silence, yet even in that stillness, I could hear the whispers of fear in the air. Elias stood before us, radiating urgency and determination. My mind whirled in confusion. What was he doing here when everything felt locked in turmoil? "Get away from her!" he shouted again, unwavering despite the palpable tension. The fierce fire in his eyes pierced through the haze of uncertainty. "Mia, stay behind me," I murmured instinctively. I knew what Elias could do. I didn't want him charged into this chaos without understanding the stakes. But the reality of our dilemma hammered at the edges of my resolve. Kay caught my gaze, a flicker of understanding passing between us as we weighed our options. Had the air around us twisted further? Our survival depended on our choices, the alliances we forged and the enemies we faced. "Elias, wait." I stepped forward, my heart pounding against my ribs. "You have to listen. This is our chance to expose what's really happening at the firm. We're not here to fight." My voice quivered, a mixture of resolve and fear, pleading with him to see beyond his protective instincts. "This is bigger than any of us." Elias's expression softened slightly, brows knitting together as he assessed the situation. "What do you mean? You're risking everything. You have no idea who you're up against." His eyes flicked toward the shadows where the executive had retreated. "They'll crush you, and you think staying in the shadows will change that?" I countered, my heart racing as I clung to the embers of my conviction. "The only way out is through the truth. If you're with us, we might stand a chance." His resolve faltered for just a moment, uncertainty clouding his features. But then something flickered in his gaze. Was it the shadow of doubt? Or realization? "All right, I'm in. But we need to act fast," he finally breathed out, dropping the tension that had vibrated between us. Relief surged within me, merging with my determination. I could feel the fragile thread of our connection weaving tighter. Mia sidled closer, gripping my arm, her eyes filled with an unspoken promise. Whatever it takes, we'll do this together, she whispered, commitment curling around each word, offering unbreakable strength. The urgency in K's voice snapped my attention back. We're running out of time. The server room, it's where we can find the connections between the new update and those transactions. Once it goes live, it'll be too late. I nodded, inhaling deeply, rallying as I turned to face the collective. This was our moment. Together, we navigated through the narrow streets, hearts pounding with a dangerous mix of adrenaline and anticipation. The moon cast a silver glow on us, illuminating our path as we approached the looming building. Yet, as we rounded that final corner, I felt an eerie presence encasing us, a wave of dread washing over me just like before. This feels wrong, I murmured, an icy knot forming in my stomach. What if they know we're coming? Let's stay alert, Elias offered, his tone steady as he scanned our surroundings, his protective edge resurfacing, but I could see the flicker of fear in his eyes, the weight of what we were about to do settling in. It'll be the distraction, Mia announced suddenly, a fierce spark igniting in her voice. I can create a delay, it'll buy you time. Surprised, I turned to her, uncertainty threading through me. No, it's too risky, we don't have a choice, Vera, she insisted. If I can draw the IT team's attention, you can slip in unnoticed. I'll send you a message when it's clear. Mia, I hesitated, intent on protecting her. But she interrupted me, squeezing my hand and forcing a smile, that radiant spirit I had always cherished. Look, this is my chance to prove myself. We're all risking something. Don't let my heart get in the way of what needs to be done. That I won't let you down, I promised, steeling myself as my heart surged with pride and fear. Stay safe. A nod of assurance, and just like that, we were ready. We approached the entrance, the weight of our resolve colliding with the impending danger. The fluorescent lights inside flickered as Elias, K, and I made our way in silently, our breaths mingling and warming the chill of uncertainty. Once out of sight, I could feel time itself thrum in my veins, an urgency that tightened around my heart at every pulse. Head to the administrative wing. It's a longer route, but it leads to the server room, K whispered, his eyes locked on the surroundings, leadership igniting against the backdrop of tension. I nodded, following him without question. Every footstep echoed a rhythmic song of fortitude as we descended into the heart of the building. The distant hum of murmuring voices surged around us, the atmosphere pulsating with urgency. Then, just as I thought we would slip unnoticed through the cracks, chaos erupted, alarms blared, a staccato crescendo erupting through the calm as red lights surged around us. Elias! I shrieked, panic creeping through my veins. What's happening? Someone must have alerted them. He shouted back, declaring the stark truth. Go! Kay commanded, thrusting me forward, urging me toward the hallway that led to the server room, raw determination etched into his features. That I sprinted, adrenaline propelling me. Behind us, the echoes of footsteps surged, relentless and approaching, but I could feel the weight of purpose propelling me forward. Vera! Elias shouted, concern clouding his voice as he tried to keep pace, but I was already pushing forward, momentum heavy with every gain. Signs of the server room coming into view. We have to reach it together, we will. I called back, breathless determination swirling in my chest and sending waves of energy through me. The tang of fear and excitement intertwined as I reached for the door, hands trembling with apprehension. The heavy handle yielded to my touch, and with a push, I stumbled into the darkened room. Rows of servers lined the walls, illuminated by the dim blue glow of technology. My heart raced. This was the pulse of the corporate beast, the heart of the infrastructure threatening devastation. There. Kay pointed toward a terminal at the back, urgency seeping into his voice. We need access to the logs. Find the most recent updates, I nodded, rushing to the terminal while Elias stood guard at the door, straining to hear footsteps closing in somewhere outside the safety of our sanctuary. I need a moment. I shouted, fingers flying across the keyboard. Just keep them out as long as you can. A slow dread began pooling in my stomach as I typed commands, trying to pull the data, but freezing as I caught a glimpse of the log files starting to download. My heart raced faster with every passing second, a storm brewing. If I could unearth hidden files, I might be able to expose their secrets. Elias, how much longer? I called behind me, desperation tinging my voice, just hold on. He snapped back, glance darting outside the door as he scanned the dim corridor. The echoes grew closer, shadows tumbling and shifting with every distant footstep. There was no time, I had to work faster. Just as I felt the weight of dread clawing at my insides, a ping echoed in the quiet room, and a notification flashed across the screen. My heart twisted in anticipation. Wait, I muttered incredulously, searching frantically through folders. There's a pattern here. The racket approached, alarm bells ringing in my ears as fear clawed at my throat. "Kay!" I shouted, "can you see this? They're moving assets through these accounts, profits from unnamed vendors, and look. They're masking transfers to offshore accounts. Evidence. That's it, Vera." Kay exclaimed, urgency pulsing through his words. The server whirred ominously, straining against the clock of urgency. "Keep it going. I can see the downloads, I'm almost there." Suddenly, a deep voice cut through the chaos, sending icy fingers of fear racing down my spine. "What do we have here?" Panic coursed through me as I turned to see the lead executive standing boldly at the door, flanked by security. The very embodiment of betrayal radiated from her posture, and dread gripped my chest like a vice. "No!" I screamed, lunging for the keyboard. "We can't let her stop this." But in an instant, her sharp laugh echoed through the room, drowning out my words. "Oh, little coffee girl, you should have known better than to dig around in places you don't belong." Her gaze pinned me, calculating and ruthless. Access revoked. That I froze as an alarm blared wildly in response to her command. The screens flickered, my heart plummeted. Everything I had fought to protect was unraveling beneath my fingers. No. Kay shouted, lunging forward, but the executive held a hand up, controlling the situation with a cold confidence that chilled the air. "Security. Remove them." As they lunged toward us, I felt my heart plunge, hope slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. Just then, Elias charged into motion, flinging himself between us and the advancing figures. "No. You're not taking us. We're exposing the truth." With one swift movement, Elias grabbed the nearest server, yanking it free from its connectors and sending sparks flying, its alarms reverberating with every desperate gasp from Kay and me. "Go!" he yelled, urging us forward as chaos erupted. In an instant, the room morphed into a blend of noise and confusion, screams mingling with alerts as Elias held off the security team, allowing just enough time to grab the data I had managed to salvage. "We have to push through," Kay urged, catching my arm. "We're not done yet, let's move," I shouted, heart racing as we sprinted toward the exit, our hopes tethered to the files now secure. As we barreled down the corridor, footsteps thundered behind us, the world became a blur of shadows and panic. "Almost there," I urged, adrenaline surging through me as we burst through the back exit, into the open air. The night felt electric, the chaotic pulse of life translating the danger we had just escaped, but just as we broke free from the jaws of danger, a roar of engines sounded. The white lights of a security van swept into the lot, its looming presence a stark reminder that we were not just fighting for ourselves anymore, we were battling against an entire system determined to bury the truth. K's eyes widened in disbelief. "They're not slowing down. We need to split up." "No. Don't leave each other," Elias protested, panic gripping at the edges of his voice. But even as we focused on escape, the shadow of dread loomed. Separation could mean exposure, a gamble that could shatter everything. We can't stay together, they'll catch on. "Well, regroup at the cafe," Kay urged, fixing me with an earnest gaze. "Go, you take the back," I exclaimed, urgency lacing my tone. "Stay close." We dashed apart, each pursuing a frantic escape through the chaos of the night, a whirlwind of heartbeats and footsteps echoing between alliances and betrayals tethered to the fragile fibers of trust. But as I fled onto the street, hands trembling and heart pounding, I felt the weight of destiny shifting in that freighted moment. I sprinted through the shadows, driven not just by the knowledge I now bore, but by the connection forged with every fearful heartbeat. The night enveloped me, a storm raging in my chest, between shadows and truths waiting to surface. As I glanced back, adrenaline thrumming, I felt the bond of purpose solidify around meth. Journey ahead may be fraught with peril, but I would no longer be the coffee girl lurking in the background. I'd become the voice of truth, rising amidst the storm, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. And with that final thought surging through me, I took my next breath, ready to write my fate anew. This was only the beginning, and I wouldn't fade into the shadows again. The light would pierce through, and the revelations that awaited us were bound to shake the foundation of everything we had ever known. No matter the cost, I would fight not just for myself, but for us all. In that moment, I realized, sometimes it's in the darkness we find our light, in the battles we build our strength. And as I ran into the night, I vowed that whatever was waiting for me ahead, I would face it with courage, for my identity was no longer bound to any single role. I was more than just the coffee girl. Now I was a force to be reckoned with. And together, we would forge the path to expose the truth. I was ready to fight even if it cost everything.